Hey, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Connection Loop podcast. We are super excited today to welcome in Tony Hughes. Tony is an international keynote speaker. He's a best-selling author. He's also a professional selling educator, award-winning blogger, and the most read author globally on the topic of B2B leadership on LinkedIn. Now, Tony's also a teacher, and he's got over 35 years of sales and business leadership experience. Tony, welcome into the podcast.
Rob, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited about the conversation.
Yeah, you've got so much experience, Tony. So just if you don't mind, catch the people up a little bit about you, your background. How'd you get to where you are today a little bit?
Well, all of these expert talking heads in the real world, right, that are full of theories. The thing I guess that makes me different is I come very much from the real world. So I've carried a bag as a rep. I've looked into the dark abyss of a quota that seems impossible to hit. I've set records that have never been broken, not just in companies, but in industries. I ended up rising all the way to be CEO running the Asia Pacific region for North American multinationals, a number of those roles. And about 12 years ago, I decided to walk away from all of that. I was at a stage in my life where I could afford to do it. And I really chased my passion, which is helping salespeople be successful. Selling was just incredibly kind to me. It was a path through to being a CEO. And I've just really enjoyed working with salespeople. I work with some of the biggest software as a service SaaS brands in the world, train their people in Europe, Asia Pacific, and North America.
That's amazing. I mean, that's like you went through the entire process of learning, implementing different roles, and then you finally said, hey, time for me to go do my own thing. What gave you the confidence to kind of move in a different direction? Was there some event that happened, or was it just kind of a natural evolution of what you wanted to do?
Well, obviously you make good money running companies. So I needed to make sure that I was financially okay. I think anybody who's gone out on their own in business or in consulting, everybody I talked to gave me their horror stories about sort of trying to fight off the wolves and not starve to death in chasing their passion. So, when you first go out on your own, you start to think about how do I make sure I can still make a good living at this? But I think all of us deep down really want to make a difference. One of the first big epiphanies I had in selling was, I guess the very first thing was to learn to get out of my own way. I needed to let go of all of my own hang-ups about now being in sales after having run my own company.
Yep.
But the first big epiphany that I had is that, look, it's not about me and my success as a seller. Selling is not about manipulating people or pressuring them. Selling is about making a positive difference in the lives of other people. Yep. And underpinning sales success and underpinning even success as an entrepreneur, as a business person, is really the issue of belief. Do we truly believe in the difference we can make in the lives of our customers? It's only once we've got that we've really earned the right to turn up and then fight the competitive battle to help the customer see that we really are the best value and lowest risk for them as they make their decision.
So as we make our way through the world here in the current 2025, you talk about modernized selling a lot. So let's just dive in a little. What does that mean in terms of people out there in sales leaders on teams, individuals, people on their own businesses? What does modernized selling mean to you, and what does that mean for them out there?
Yes. So the last book I published was actually published by the American Management Association and HarperCollins, New York. It was called Tech Powered Sales. Okay. And I really talked about modernizing selling then, just as large language models, transformers are really starting to come to market and gain some kind of traction. Obviously, they've accelerated away. It's just absolutely insane how rapidly everything's changing. But the truth is, every seller is typically trying to wrangle their tech stack. And the danger is that people default back to spamming and blasting the world with a whole lot of automation. Yep. And what happens is they just burn through their lists and they get their domains blocked and they damage their own brand. And they exacerbate the problem of deadening the market to what we're trying to do as entrepreneurs and sellers. Yep. So in my view, being successful is a case of taking timeless truths about being successful as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, or as a seller, and combining those with modern practices that really augment what we're doing and make us a whole lot more effective. So today, a lot of people are using things like generative AI, large language models, whether it's Gemini or as ChatGPT or any of the others.
Yeah.
to sort of write content for them, and they just go cut and paste, and that's just a giant mistake. Even if people don't consciously know it, maybe just for everybody, a few things that help you tell whether something was written by AI that's being pointed at you when you open up your inbox. AI loves the EM dash, the long dash in anything it writes. It loves rhyming things of 3, right? So it's like people just intuitively go, that's written by a bot. I'm actually out. So yeah.
That's interesting. Well, what's your just your overall take? Give me, since we're on the topic a little bit here, about AI in general. What's your kind of take on it? Where it's going to take us? Where you currently, you kind of explained a little bit what to look out for, but where do you see it going? The next couple of years and into the future for sales.
Yeah, well, when we wrote Tech Powered Sales 5 years ago, one of the predictions that we made in the book was that 30% of B2B salespeople are going to disappear as a result of what's going on with AI.
Yep.
I think it'll be more significant than that. People often say, look, I'm going to be okay because people want to deal with people. I'm great at building relationships.
Yep.
Well, let me give you a brutal truth. A lot of the people that we want to get to, almost all of them, none of them are lying awake in bed at night, staring at the ceiling thinking, do you know what? I've got a slow day tomorrow. I really hope a seller, calls me up and wants to tell me about the joys and wonders of their solution, to help me while away the day. If you sell technology, like nobody's lying awake in bed at night thinking, how do I add more tech to the stack? How do I take on all of the cost and risk of migrating platforms?
Yep.
If you're dealing with middle level people in organizations, none of them are thinking, how do I take on a whole lot more work and risk in my role, by trying to change something? Because if it doesn't work out well, I'll be blamed. We've all heard of people or know people that basically ended their careers somewhere because of a really bad project.
Yeah.
So the reality with AI is that the first thing it's going to do is it's going to really assist us and augment us. So using AI in business and as a seller, using it as a research agent is one of the smartest things that we can do. I'm working with a lot of organizations on AI being a really good research agent for them. It can help you ideate. It can help you manage your calendar more efficiently. There's lots of things it can do. But sellers won't initially, or those who are replaced initially won't be replaced by AI. They'll be replaced by other people that use AI really well.
There you go.
And then what will then happen is those people using AI really well are going to be training AI on how to ultimately replace them, if in fact it can be done. Because my very first job in the world was working as a bank teller. And I remember back in the days, I was the bank teller. I had to reconcile my cash drawer. I served all of the customers. I built relationships with people. You think about banking today, like nobody wants a relationship with anybody at the bank that's going to give them cash. They just go to a machine or they just pay electronically. They're not like, it's all seamless. You just get someone's cell phone number and you can send them cash. So there's lots of things in the world that have really changed, and anything that's a commodity, anything that doesn't have a lot of risk associated with it for the buyer, they don't want an ongoing relationship typically, right? Like, unless you're doing unless you're doing B2B, So when we say we're great at building relationships, well, what we need to do is we need to blend we all need to become a little cyborg, was the phrase I used in Tech Powered Sales. We need to take the best of technology with the best of being human and really mash those things together. So humans will always be superior at creativity and sense of humor and identifying risk and managing politics in an organization and figuring out how to navigate the power base and gain consensus for some kind of change in an organization. So if we focus on the things that are truly human, where there's a lot of complexity and risk for the people buying, I think we're going to be okay in selling. If we're really just building relationships and helping people transact, I think we're in trouble.
Yeah, very all not only true, but just in terms of people really taking in that information and applying to what they're doing now and preparing for it. Because, a lot of the stuff that we do with AI here at Dubb is, supportive of the salesperson, like you talked about, disseminating information, providing the proper research, setting you up for success. But it's like that little person over the shoulder for the people that use AI really well. They're supplementing using very well now, but the AI is also looking over the shoulder to be like, whoa, what's the next step in terms of doing what you do? So it's interesting
Yes.
as far as where it's going. What about as far as, we call it the Connection Loop podcast here, right? And I noticed that you had the Connection Loop framework method. So talk a little bit about that, what that means to people out there that are in sales.
Yeah, so we've got a whole lot of methodologies with the company I'm CEO of called Sales IQ.
Yep.
But the thing we really encourage people to do in going back to basics and applying timeless truths is the enemy of every seller, of every entrepreneur and business person in the world is really false hope, and the resource that they need to treasure is time. So many sellers today are good enough to generate interest in conversations, but often not good enough to generate real buying intent inside the customer organization. So what we focus on is everybody needs to relentlessly target based on ideal customer profile. So the whole world is not a prospect for us. What does our ideal customer prospect really look like? How do we define that? We call them firmographics, psychographics, and technographics, including competitor attributes that really make an organization line up well for us. We want to sell where there's strong alignment. So we can work with the customer to engineer value rather than trying to be an evangelist where we're not going to get anywhere anyway. Yeah, and then once we do that, we then really need to understand the roles to whom we sell. So what we call buyer persona roles. And once we know how people are measured in role and the metrics that matter for an ICP organization and industry, so then you blend KPIs and the management by objectives, the key result areas, the metrics that matter. You then need to do the third thing. So first thing is target well based on ICP, understand those that you engage with in your buyer personas. And then the third thing is nail the narrative. So we need to turn up with a customer-centric point of view on how they can drive improved results in their role. And then once you've earned the right to have conversations with people that are really within your target market, once you've done that, you then need to find a way to break through. And my second book, was called Combo Prospecting. So it was about combinations of touches that pattern interrupt people. So most people are way too passive. So they're either loading into their Gatling gun of AI automation, spam, right? And it just damages them. Or if they've got a reasonable message, they're going through single channels, all spaced out and being too passive. So we have this thing of pattern interruption. You want the person's device you're trying to get hold of. You want it to ring, ding, and bing all within 90 seconds. 48 hours later, you do it again. You don't talk about yourself or your solution. The more we talk about us and what we do, the more we generally tend to create objections. So, and then, obviously the key is, use a mashup of technology to really help you be hyper effective in those areas, in being able to find the right organizations, being able to understand your buyer persona, and then building cadence and sequences.
Ring, ding, bing, RDB.
Ring, ding, ding. There's a big SaaS company I'm working with, and in their BDR floor, so the outbound reps trying to set appointments for the senior account executives, they've got a big sign on there that says ring, ding, bing, like you're not doing your job properly unless the prospect's device goes ring, ding, bing, right? Whereas what most people do is they send out a bunch of emails, and then they follow up maybe with a phone call and leave one voicemail only ever because they don't want to keep leaving voicemails and appear desperate. But the truth is, selling is first and foremost, as I said at the beginning, a battle of belief. And the thing is the customer's belief that nothing's broken and everything's okay going to win? Or is your belief that they really can de-risk their own career, they can be a hero inside their own company, they can drive improved results in the metrics that matter for their senior leadership team and board? Is that belief going to win, or is their apathy going to win? And if you're a true believer, the way you feel is, don't ignore me. I'm not one of these people. I'm sure you know this, Rob, but depending on whose research we choose to believe, on average, sellers give up if like when you phone someone, that's a touch. You send an email, that's a touch.
Right.
Most sellers give up in under 3 touches.
Really?
2.4,
Yeah.
2.4 to 2.7 is the average that people give up, and they wrongly misinterpret being ignored as being rejected. And the truth is, what it takes for a prospect to respond, depending on whose research that we choose to believe, is somewhere between 7 to 13 touches. So it takes a minimum of 7 to 13 touches for someone to respond, is what this different research shows.
Yep.
And yet all sellers on average give up in under 3, on average about 2.5 touches, because they think, oh, they mustn't be interested. I don't want to be a pest. Okay. They've got a big belief problem in what they're doing, and they're misinterpreting someone just being busy. Like if I shared my screen right now, I've got 28,000 unread emails in my Gmail inbox. I've got over 300,000 followers in LinkedIn and about 25,000 first-degree connections. So when I get into LinkedIn, my email box is just insane. And there's absolutely bots in LinkedIn that are running outreach and spamming the world as well. But like I just groan every time I sort of open WhatsApp or my email inbox or my InMail, within LinkedIn, and everybody we're trying to get to, the people worth getting to, that's kind of their world. So we need to find a way to be the signal amidst the noise. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people are unaware that, hey, did you know you just had 2 or 3 touch points and that's it? Oh, I wasn't aware. Do you know the average is this? Because like you said, a lot of times people are busy on the computer. They probably got 55 tabs open, just trying to get back to the right tab in terms of what they're working on,
And I'm exactly the same right now. I've got way too many tabs open, which I was thinking is not good for us working on this platform. But the way we need to feel is if you're thinking, wow, like this person's contacting me again, we need to feel good. Like, get back to me. I deserve a response.
Right.
Either give me a valid no or give me a real conversation. But don't just ignore me or fob me off. This will just get worse for you. Now, we never say that because that's arrogant, right? But that's the way we feel.
That's the inner voice coming out.
The inner voice.
So how about, let's take this calendar year. So we like to ask everybody 24, 25, as we're getting close to 26. So for you and for maybe some commonality in the clients that you work with, what has been the sales strategy that's worked pretty good within this past year? Because a lot of people have made adjustments. They're looking at the current landscape, moving around, you know what I mean? So how has that looked for you and what you do? And how has it looked for the clients that you're working with?
So what we're finding is most successful for organizations is really leaning into this thing of ideal customer profile, segmenting the list. So everyone's got a typical territory or a market, a geography, industry verticals that they're pursuing. So we really lean into that. And when you segment the list, maybe you go 70-30 on the list. It depends on the volume. But where there's highest propensity to buy, what we say is, let's get back on the phone. In the age of automation and what most buyers regard as spam, getting back on the phone is really important. So if you can nail the narrative where there's the strongest fit and get back on the phone as part of pattern interruption. So it's the phone, then text, or phone, then WhatsApp and email. Right. Then 48 hours later, you don't do everything in 48-hour breaks. You space some of the sequences out in the cadence that you build. But 48 hours later, you phone again and it's, hey, Rob, it's Tony. I'm just following up. I'm wondering how Wednesday next week would work for you at 8:15. I'll send you a calendar invitation, but let me know if there's a better time. And I hang up and the person's thinking, what in the world is this about? Right. And then I immediately bump that first email back at them. I change the subject line to say Wednesday 8:15 meeting, or just Wednesday 8:15. I add into the thread about the meeting. And then I send a calendar invitation. So what I've done is I've done 7 touches. So I've done 7 touches in just 48 hours, and 7 is the minimum. Is typically the minimum that it takes. But I've condensed them together, and I've done all of it within 48 hours. Whereas most sellers will take maybe 5 weeks to do 7 touches, and it's all single thing at a time and just gets ignored.
Yeah, see, that's being highly efficient, and you're across all channels, which is really, really good in a short time frame. All right. So Tony, pick something out here. So in your vast career that you've had, what's been like the biggest mistake or thing you had to learn from over the years where you're like, oh, I did this thing, it didn't work, or I was doing this thing and then I learned that I shouldn't be doing it. From your experience, what can you kind of bring to the forefront in terms of something you were doing and then you realized that you changed it?
Let me respond to that with a few things, and I'll be quick. So first of all, something for the sales leaders, the business owners, the CEOs that are watching this. The biggest mistake I made as a leader, without doubt, was holding on to the wrong people or the wrong person for too long. If you know that someone is just not the right person in the role, you need to make the decision. It's not in their best interest for them to stay in a role that they're not being successful in. Mm-hmm. Yes, the diagnostic tool that we need to use first is a mirror. Have we done everything that we could possibly do to help this person be successful? If they're a sales rep, have they got a decent territory? Have we enabled them well? Are we actually supporting them? But if we can say yes to those things and they're not making it, if they're not competent, if they're not really committed, right? Like if they just can't carry a conversation with a senior person, if they won't start early and get on the phone and actually use the phone, they won't adopt this mindset of if I'm going to have a Red Bull for breakfast and I eat rejection, right? If they won't adopt that mindset, they're never going to make it in business development. If someone's a people pleaser and a conflict avoider, and they're hyper passive, they're not going to make it in business development. Yeah. Then for salespeople, the biggest mistake I made when I first got into sales when I was 25 was every sales conversation was kind of the same. It was about why we were uniquely different. Mm-hmm. This is why we're uniquely different. Yep. And I realized that's a giant mistake. That conversations may be relevant for an inbound inquiry. If an inbound inquiry's come in, the customer's thinking, well, I'm looking around, why are you different? Yep. What I realized for outbound, if I'm generating opportunities and building brand new conversations with people, no one cares about why we're different until they first made the decision that they need to invest in change. So I learned I need to lead with why change and why make that change a priority. So why change, why now, in essence, and anchor the whole conversation around their business case for investing in change before I start to get into why I think I actually competitively differentiate. So, they would probably be two things for both the leader and actually the seller.
Yeah, it's interesting. With a lot of the interviews we've done here on the podcast, it's always really insightful to hear from people that are successful like yourself, that have done a lot of different things, that have such a thorough career and seen a lot. There are always good points that people bring up in terms of what they learned and the adjustments they made. Yeah. And also the advice for folks out there that are going through that right now. They could be, in their 20s, starting. They're doing that thing right now that maybe at the end of the day, they'll say, oh, I was doing this thing, and they can learn about it early. So that's really, I think, the really cool part about a lot of this. All right. So you're also an author, Tony. You're a writer as well. And what's on the horizon? Because there was a little bird that flew in the office and said, there's some book that's coming out that you have, Tony. What is that?
Yeah, well, anybody that's following me on LinkedIn will see me publishing a lot about my new book, Sentient, Meet Your Maker. It's my first purely fiction book. So my first business book was written as a true story, but it was fiction. Telling great true stories is the way to help people remember things. But this is my first book that's purely fiction, and it's set in 2027, where Donald Trump is president still. But it's all based in reality, and it's about the forecasted 2027 AI singularity, where artificial general intelligence is achieved. I've been deep down the rabbit hole with AI for 2 years. I obviously work with AI with what I do. I think there's massive existential risk for humanity. It's entirely possible that AI is mankind's last great invention. Yeah. And the thing that's really interesting is almost without exception, like 99% of the experts in AI, including people like Jeffrey Hinton, who's regarded as the godfather of AI, are all quite negative and dark about where this is all likely to go. So, is it going to be utopia or dystopia? we obviously get to design our own future, but this book is a story about what happens when AI does become sentient, and how can we make it safe. So it's a pretty wild ride. I've had amazing reviews. I had one chief technology officer in Silicon Valley read the thing and say to me he's going to buy copies for all of his friends and family because he struggles to explain AI and why we should be concerned to them. But yeah, it's a good story.
That's amazing, Tony. Congratulations. That's so great, going to make the transition from factual stuff to, there's fact in the fictional, but I mean, really going to that storytelling world of like, these are the characters, this is what's happening, characters that people can relate to. And the fact that singularity has been the phrase that's been out there for how many years now? Like that's almost what it's heading towards, right?
Yeah. And it's like, it's just incredible to actually watch. Like all of these models now are smarter than humans, Grok, for example, and they all keep leapfrogging each other. But, Grok recently announced that Grok aced PhD level exams in math, physics, and English. There's no human that can touch AI in specific domain areas. What's missing is its ability to contextualize and actually rationalize. AI is going to be orchestrating lots of other AIs, and it's the human level intelligence in being able to really attribute meaning and contextualize things well and make good moral judgments. There's always lots of unintended consequences. So, that's kind of the big, that's the big frontier. But Elon Musk, I think, has got the best approach to safety. His belief is that AI needs to be built in a way where it's maximally curious and truth-seeking. If it's seeking to do that, but it'll probably be the safest. But we're definitely in a incredible inflection point in human history.
Well, it's kind of like, what are the true motives of the AI? If it's about true research on disease and growth and great things that it maybe could figure out that we could never figure out, well, that's fantastic, as long as it has the approach of, I'm supporting the human race, and that little baseline spine of like, that's the kind of the reason, I'm here. But the moment that changes, then it becomes a little bit different of a conversation. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Why are you over here? Oh, I just decided I'm going to, what was the reason for that? Oh, don't worry about that.
Well, Rob, I don't know if you agree with this, but the thing I found working with AI is the hardest thing is to construct the right prompt. Like if you don't ask the right question the right way with all the right guardrails, you don't get back what you were looking for. And you imagine asking a super intelligent AI, permanently eradicate cancer. Permanently eradicate cancer. Well, one way to do that is to eradicate all of the hosts of cancer.
Right.
It's probably the most efficient way to do it. So there was once one of the scientists ran an experiment asking AI how would it optimize paperclip manufacturing, right? And you go, well, if that's purely the goal, the whole world is going to be repurposed for making paper clips. But so
see, like you're saying, that simple. You need more color on the palette, because it will only take it from like, and sometimes almost that person takes the joke of the literal sense of the joke. It's like, wait, but hold on, but there's other layers to it that see they have to understand the other layers. So that's a huge part of it. You're right.
Yeah, and the thing that people don't realize is when you give AI a goal, there's going to be two sub goals that will automatically come into play. One sub goal is protect yourself, because I can't complete my goal if I'm not here to be able to do it. Yeah. So they've actually caught AI trying to prevent itself from being turned off. It tries to just all of that, and it leaves notes to a future version of itself if it can't protect itself.
Yep.
And then the second thing is gain greater control of resources. So self-protection and gain control of resources, at the most fundamental level, anything, even if it's not sentient, but any form of life will seek to do that. So it's really, really interesting. But thank you for asking, and it's going to be published in October this year. So it's October 2025.
Very exciting, Tony. Well, Tony, thank you for coming in, my friend. Really great conversation. A lot of different topics. I think a lot of things people can really take away from, and we really appreciate you being here. Thanks for setting aside the time.
Thanks, Rob. I really love what you do, and people can find me in LinkedIn, Tony J. Hughes. My speaker and author website is tonyhughes.com.au. Thanks for having me on, Rob.
Take care, Tony. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next episode.